Hello?
Hi, is this Robert?
This is Robert, and I assume this is Dr. Smith?
It certainly is. Sorry for the delay in getting to you. Things just went worse than I expected in the lab today.
See, I knew that.
Your message made it sound like you've done this enough that you know sort of things get in the way of plans once in a while.
Absolutely. That's why you always got to have a plan B.
Yeah, copy that.
So,
what can I help you with today?
well, as I mentioned in my original message to you, I'm working on a piece for fire rescue, where we start taking a look at how some of these advances in the technology, particularly as it comes to physiological monitoring, what kind of an impact is that having on the fire service now, and what does it look like down the road, and those kinds of things, and particularly focusing on the, kind of what can we tell our readers about what has come out of that summit that took place back in March, and as one of the primary players in that, I thought that getting some of your thoughts would really enhance the article.
Fantastic. Well, I'm thrilled you're doing this. As you know, we have an interest in this technology as well, and we did partner with the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation to host that summit. They coordinated it all for it, and as part of that, we gave an update on our grant-related activities that were really designed to explore technologies for the fire service.
Okay, so one of the things that really piqued my interest was, obviously I saw where online you had the different presentations that took place at the conference, and
Yep.
And I I got to tell you, as someone who's done a fair number of presentations of my own in the past and so forth, I really appreciate when people have slides that don't tell me everything.
Nice.
So I guess that was the biggest thing that I wanted to perhaps get from you was what were some of the key points that you were trying to get across with your presentations at the summit, particularly when it comes to the cardiovascular strain of firefighting.
Right. Yeah. I will tell you my big takeaways. So wearable technologies are, just all around us now. The number of people wearing Fitbits or a polar heart rate watch or using an app to track their activity level or to monitor their physiological responses while they're exercising is just phenomenal, and it has increased dramatically in recent years. So, of course, it makes sense to explore the potential use of that during firefighting. But what I have been really focused on myself is trying to make sure that we're doing that in really reasonable ways. I don't know that it just makes sense to monitor firefighters 24 hours a day. I mean, that would be cumbersome. How much information would you get? When would you use it, etc.? So we've tried to think about times when it's most useful. Now, one of the ways we did that was by partnering with a fire department, Hanover Park Fire Department in particular, where the guys were willing to wear shirts that included heart rate monitoring, core body temperature estimates, breathing rates, and activity patterns. They wore those shirts for us 24 hours a day. Now, we did that not because we think that's the most common thing that firefighters are going to do is to wear a shirt with a tight strap around it and review this data every day. But we knew that if we could do that in a fire department, it would give us opportunities to better understand what is feasible or what is practical and what is useful. Because, I mean, the technology itself is inviting, but knowing what would you do with the information if you had it is really kind of the bottom line game changer, in my view. So because Hanover Park wore these shirts for us for about 4 months, they had all their personnel, or about 50 people, in shirts, we were able to explore some ideas on when we think it would be most useful. So I did a little bit of research, right? Does wearing them at night help us get data on the autonomic nervous system and whether a person is able to rest or not? We found that very difficult because the guys hated wearing the shirts at night. We had them wear shirts during physical fitness training, which was good. We had them wear shirts during training, live fire training, which was very useful. I might actually give you the chief's name and number so you can follow up with him.
That would be great.
Yeah, he found some things in training he didn't expect, and therefore changed his training as a result of it. He also, because the guys were wearing the shirts 24 hours a day, he had the shirts on his people when they got emergency calls. So we were able to look at heart rate and estimated core temperature during calls. Now, what we saw during the structural fire calls is really what we expected from previous research. So nothing really new there. But when the chief saw what was happening to his personnel during brush fires or wildland fires, he's like, oh my goodness. There were a couple of times when he pulled people off the line and said, wait a minute, based on your estimated core temperature and the fact that I have people here who can do the work, I'm going to take and put you in rehab. So he was able to make operational decisions. Now, it still isn't clear to me if we want to require people to wear shirts every day so that we can see their estimated core temperature during calls. Because usually estimated core temperature isn't a problem on the fire ground. That, and I hope you're following me, but core temperature is usually a bigger problem in training where you do longer evolutions or multiple evolutions. So I think I'll pause. I mean, that was an awful lot of what we did with the measuring cardiovascular strain and some of the looks we got at it and how heat stress fits into cardiovascular strain. Let me stop there and see what questions you might have.
Okay. I mean, certainly a great deal of what you just covered are things that, based on my experience, make an awful lot of sense. And also, what I've been probably over the last 3 or 4 years in writing different articles, particularly dealing with firefighter rehabilitation on the emergency scene, is that information is also congruent with what I've been seeing from other places, etc. I'm curious as to what is. Not that hesitation is necessarily the right word, but your hesitation about firefighters wearing something for 24 hours.
Oh, very good question. Very good question. So one of my challenges always in thinking about technology is how advanced is the technology right now in terms of the firefighter accepting it or using it, and how useful is the information we gain from it. So to answer your question, why am I a little reluctant to think about firefighters wearing the technology 24 hours a day, is because in its current version, and we worked with Globe Manufacturing, they developed a t-shirt that the electronics sit in so that we can measure heart rate continuously. And right now, most people don't think that shirt is particularly comfortable. So if you give the guys a choice, hey, do you want to wear this or not? They're like, no. Now, they were willing to do it for a research, and I mean, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. But most guys don't want to wear a very tight-fitting T-shirt, more like a bra, 24 hours a day when they're on shift. And what we gain from that information right now is modest, in my view. We can tell your heart rate during firefighting, but the truth is we already know your heart rate is likely to be maximum or near maximal during the most strenuous firefighting work. And since there's no health risk associated with that high heart rate, it's not like if you have a high heart rate, we should stop you from firefighting. You know, if you were running a marathon and I knew your heart rate was high, I wouldn't say, hey, slow down or don't finish or something. Right? Humans can go to a high heart rate with nothing bad happening. So it's not like that's a good predictor of a bad outcome. So I don't think right now firefighters are willing to wear it 24 hours a day when it's not providing an index of imminent danger. Did that make sense to you, Robert?
Yeah. No, so, am I understanding correctly then that what you were monitoring didn't include ECG monitoring?
Oh boy, yeah, you are asking really good questions.
Well, thank you.
The technology we used, which is Zephyr. Zephyr is a technology that's embedded into that Globe T-shirt. And you might want to talk to Globe as a follow-up to this too, or Zephyr. But that unit does have the ability to record single lead ECG. So as researchers, we were looking as part of this to see, does wearing a single lead ECG allow you to measure arrhythmias? And it's still not clear that it does, maybe. But some arrhythmias more than others. So forgive me, Robert, can I ask, are you dual trained as a paramedic as well? You mentioned you're doing a fair bit with rehab.
I am. I in my 26-year career, I was an advanced life support provider the entire time as well.
Fantastic. So you're going to understand this perfectly. And in fact, I'm so glad I'm talking to you because it might be even a different story, but you could write about this and help translate it to the entire fire service. So monitoring ECG at first sounds great because if we're monitoring ECG, we should be able to look for arrhythmias or ischemia, and we'd be interested in both. But if you think about the technology that's currently available for the fire service, it's only recording single lead ECG. So now we have several problems to overcome. One is that it's a single lead. So you can get some arrhythmias that you would be interested in, right? Because on the fire ground, we're not interested in knowing that somebody had a PVC or, oh, look at that supraventricular beat. Like, there's so many completely benign abnormalities that we don't want to focus on those on the fire ground. We would really only care about life-threatening arrhythmias. But because it's a single lead ECG and it's not equivalent to anything on a 12-lead ECG, it is hard to make diagnostic decisions. Like somebody's having a really serious problem and we should stop this fireground operation to pull them out and look at them. So with arrhythmias, maybe, I think we're close to being able to detect some things, but we need a better image and we need it in real time. Right now, it's all recording, which is of very little use, right? So I feel like I'm telling you about several different pieces of a technology project that come together. One is the technology, because they might be able to get better real-time visualization. But then part of it is all of the bandwidth it takes to use that technology, whether it's displaying it or having someone there who can interpret it in real time. And part of it is the complexity of human physiology. If you have, you're a paramedic, you can see all sorts of funky things on an ECG that don't mean something bad is going to happen. And on a fire ground, you don't want to stop things because of those.
Right. You gotta treat the patient, not the monitor.
Yeah, that's a very good phrase. So if all the time you have this monitor showing and somebody's looking at it while the firefighter's in gear and in the middle of an operation, right now we don't have enough ability to do anything with that. And one other thing I'll say to you that will make sense immediately is even when we know a patient is at risk, even if you think about something like the ICU, they're monitoring patients, but that doesn't give them an ability to predict who's going to have a problem, right? So
right.
the ECG being useful while firefighters are doing firefighting activity, my own view is that we're a long way away from that.
Okay, so let me at this point ask you another question.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so given these limitations of ECGs and core body temperature, etc., what is it that we're trying to accomplish? What is it we want to be able to do with physiological data that has an impact on firefighter health and safety?
Boy, you know what? I hope you and I get a chance to meet one day, because you're asking all the right questions, and if you can get this laid out for your readership, it will be really helpful. Because on one end, when we start with all the potential promise, it sounds almost like a silver bullet. And I have to say, having explored it, I don't think we're there. But I also believe there are some useful places that technology can help us. And one of them goes right to something you told me you've spent some time with, and that's rehab. When guys were wearing this shirt and went into rehab, the people providing rehab loved it. Because now instead of getting a measurement of heart rate when they come in and 10 minutes later, you can continuously watch a person's heart rate, and that gives you a pretty good sense of how they're recovering. Same thing with core temperature. You can ensure that you're starting to see a decrease in core temperature as you're hydrating and cooling the firefighter. So in rehab, I think the current technology for getting heart rate and estimated core temperature can be very useful and make something we're already doing easier. I also think that getting ECG in rehab is a potential targeted place to get that information that is relatively feasible. Because now you don't have all the movement artifacts that you'd have during firefighting. You're not at risk of stopping fireground operations because you see something that's anomalous and you don't know if it's movement artifact or a PVC or has any clinical meaning. Now you can look at that ECG data along with looking at the patient. And if there's any concern, follow-up is easy. Put them on. So I think instead of doing it during firefighting, which somehow we just got in our head as a glamorous and easy way to make sure people didn't have a problem, I think if we backed up to when could we really make decisions, I think rehab becomes a real target for using technology.
Oh, I agree. I agree completely. And in fact, the latest versions of NFP, don't quote me on this, 1584, which is the rehab standard. I mean,
Yep.
it incorporates a lot of what you just talked about. So we're certainly moving in the right direction in terms of more than pulse rate, blood pressure, and maybe sticking the thermometer in your mouth.
Yeah. 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 The other thing I think where the technology could potentially be useful in the near future or now, not, way off in the distance, is during firefighting training. Because I think in training we have a much, much greater problem with heat stress. And you can see that we have an estimated core temperature in the current device, and we're working to make that more accurate among firefighters. And Houston in particular has started doing some work with that and are very happy with the system, because now you don't have the idea of, well, I'm wearing it for 24 hours and I hate it. People are much, much more agreeable to wearing the technology for shorter periods of time. And Houston has found that it's a very good way to help keep track of people. And now knowing heart rate doesn't necessarily tell you, oh, somebody should come out of a drill, but it does let you see we've got 12 people in this drill. Most of them have a heart rate of 140. One guy has a heart rate of 180. Let's check and see if he's dehydrated or getting a cold or something's going on. So it provides a level of safety and the ability of the instructors to see the level of cardiovascular strain. And that can help with safety. It can help with instructional design. If your guys are too tired or you've had them do more than you thought they were, then you give longer breaks so that they can take in the information and learn better.
Absolutely. I'm jotting some stuff down here. Whew, that's a lot of stuff. I'm glad my phone recorder's working.
That's great. That's great. And one thing I will say, Robert, I've been wrestling with this for a while. I appreciate that it is complex, and I will make myself completely available to you. If you want to do this in a couple of series, like maybe you want to do cardiovascular strain and heat stress differently. Maybe you want to talk about training differently. But I'm happy to put you in touch with some of my other partners. As I said, I think hearing from a fire chief who's partnered with us would be good. The training captain in Houston, I think, is doing fantastic things using this and really leading the way in how it might be used in training. I'm happy to get you in touch with them as well if it's useful rather than just overwhelming.
Yeah, no, I think that would be extremely useful, and I certainly appreciate that because the thoughts of my editors is this isn't a one and done piece.
Beautiful.
I mean, we've kind of the way they've sketched it out to me is that we're looking to kind of have a, not necessarily a series, but certainly something that follows this as it's going down the road. And certainly, right now the biggest thing I think is we kind of need to help people catch up.
Right.
And again, I think with the stuff that some of the last bits that you just shared with me, in terms of what's realistic right now and what is still very much nebulous, I think that's important to get out to people, because then we start creating more realistic expectations.
Yeah, amen, amen. That's what I think we really need to do. I get too many people who are like zealots and think we can do something tomorrow. And although I would like it, it's not my own analysis. And then I hear people who are just disparaging and
Hello?
can't have something really great. It's just we
Hey.
have to have realistic expectations.
Hey, I don't know what happened, but I think I missed like 2 sentences there.
Well, I am driving, so I hope
Oh,
I don't
okay.
get more trouble. No, I
Okay.
was just saying, I think there's a risk to the zealots who think the technology will solve every problem tomorrow. And there's problems with the people who just say, oh, that's pie in the sky, never happened, like we don't need any of it. I think what we need are realistic expectations, and then to systematically improve and adapt the technologies that will be useful.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Cool.
Agree more. So yeah, I definitely think I have more than enough to put the finishing touches to this particular piece. But like I said, you know, we're kind of in this for the long haul and not a one and done situation. So
Fantastic.
So I truly appreciate your time today.
Well, Rob, I appreciate what you're doing, trying to get this word out and all the stuff on rehab and firefighter health and safety. You reach out to me anytime I can help you again.
All right. Hey, listen. I first of all, I hope you're using a hands-free system.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now I'll tell you that that's not much better than a handheld.
I agree with you with being awfully careful about that. I'm on a road I know well, secondary road, so being careful.
Okay, because that's one of my pet peeves.
Well,
See,
understood.
people don't realize how much just the fact that you're talking with someone who's not there has on your driving.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Especially if you're in traffic, because anyway, that's for another conversation another time.
Understood.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Doc, and I appreciate it. And if you would, please do send me those contacts, because certainly those would be more specific topics to address in later articles.
That sounds great. That sounds great. I'll get it to you, I hope this weekend.
Okay. All right. Well, you have a great weekend, and I look forward to talking to you in the future.
Sure. And Robert, would you do me a favor, please, and send me your article when it's finished so I can get a good look at it?
Oh, absolutely.
And you know what? While I have you, before I hang up, I have one specific request. In the article, will you note that our work on this was funded by the Assistance to Firefighters grant?
Oh, it's already in there.
Thank you. That's just a political sensitivity that we need
Yeah.
to all be aware of
Yeah.
when we're talking about supporting research. Thank you, sir.
All right. Take care.
All right. Be well. Hope to talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.